I'm battling demons. Some shit that you never seen, you don't wanna see it either. Step pops woman beater. Mom's tripping, she don't wanna leave him, so she drinking liquor by the liter. Alright, we are back, man. This is Wise Bexley from the Pullup. We got a special guest with us today. Introduce yourself.
My name is Cher Black. I'm from Dallas, Texas originally, now Douglasville.
Okay. So how I like to set up my interviews, I like to dive right in. Like I don't like to do the small talk shit. So I want to ask you this to get us a good flow going. What was your first memory of trauma in your life? Like, what was that first point in your life that you can look back on and say, this definitely affected me, whether it's a positive or a negative?
I was about 2. I don't know if I was like 2, new 2, or 2.5, or almost 3. But I know I was 2. And my dad was fighting with my mom, and I was in between them, and she was wearing this like bright neon flower pattern nightgown, and my dad was beating her up, and I was crying. And he picked me up and he threw me into the fireplace. There wasn't a fire going, but I hit the bricks. And that's my first traumatic memory.
You have a vivid memory from when you were 2?
Yes.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
And so let me ask that then. What is your relationship with your dad now? Or is he alive?
My dad is alive. I don't talk to my dad. I attempted to have a relationship with him as an adult. And he fucked my friends. So
Your dad fucked your friend?
yeah, my dad fucked my friends. So that kind of.
What age range is this? Let's paint a timeline. What age range is this when you tried to get back in touch with him?
I tried to get in touch with him the first time I was 19, and I was pregnant with my son, and I reached out to him to try to establish a relationship with him. And he accepted me at that, initially, but when I went to him, because I was pregnant and not married and needed some guidance or something, and I went there, and he and his wife, her name was Nora, decided that I was demonic. And were very, very disappointed that my baby's father was Hispanic. So they threw me out. Yeah, so that was the first attempt. The second attempt was when I was 24. And I wanted him to be a part of my son's life, and a part of my life. Like, I really wanted a dad, but he always has motives, so there's no point in trying again. Like, the last time I tried, I was 34. And then that's when he fucked all my friends. You know, and not only did he fuck my friends, but he took my inheritance and he dispersed it among my friends that he fucked. So, no, fuck that guy.
Okay, so that with your dad being your first traumatic experience, with the times that you tried to integrate him with your life and it being such negative experiences when you tried to involve him in your life, how does that affect you at your age now? Looking back, all in retrospect, of course, but how do you think that affected your life as it stands right now? Your relationship with your dad?
There's daddy issues, yeah. You know, it affected me majorly. I've always gone for men who appear timid, but thrive on control. Or I go for men who are completely out of their fucking minds, careless, reckless, thuggy, unreliable. It's either danger or dysfunction. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. The lack of positive relationship with my father has definitely affected my life.
Okay. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from dad for a second. But I just wanted to touch bases on that trauma, and then we're gonna build off of that. So talking to you off of camera, you told me a lot of interesting things as far as LSD.
Yes.
So how did you get introduced to just that scene in general? This prior to, you know what I mean, what you were doing as far as like selling or whatever, but just the introduction to drugs, I guess, in a sense. What was that for you?
Okay, well, hold on, let me clear up, because
Take your time.
this is, I just want to say I was born in 1970. Okay, growing up in the 70s and 80s was very, very, very different from the 90s and 2000s and on. Okay, 70s and 80s were a whole different reality. I grew up with marijuana, cocaine, LSD, mushrooms, peyote, mescaline, Dilaudid, Valium. Like, I grew up with that, okay? So the introduction to LSD was probably in the womb. And I would say, like, the first time I smoked pot was probably 4.5 or 5.
How does that come about? Do you have a memory of that, or?
Oh yeah, I remember pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of marijuana shoved in closets and under the beds and in the freezer and all over the house. I had a friend, her name was Antonia, and Antonia and I would try to roll joints with toilet paper. We were like 4 or 5.
And does that come from seeing it?
Visual, visual
influence?
It was just the norm. You know, it was just the norm for people to be smoking pot or tripping or, you know, but it wasn't like a bad environment. All the grown-ups were very creative and encouraging and learning. By this point, my mom had left my dad, and this was our new life. But it was fun. But yeah, I think I was like 6 or 7 when I did my first line of coke, you know. But I didn't do my first hit of acid until I was 14.
And then okay, so from my experience with any type of mushroom, LSD, any type of reality altering drug, my perspective of reality immediately switched. Like my first time taking shrooms, the way I looked at the world in general changed. So at 14, when you take acid, how do you look at life the same? How do you see the children the same? How do you interact as a 14-year-old after seeing a side of reality that no 14-year-old had seen before?
Well, I was really lucky because I had a group of friends. Who went on that journey with me. Okay, and you know, those friends are still friends. You know, we went on that venture together, and we've come, like, we're still here. We did a lot of shit together. We experimented with everything in the world together. So we're lucky. But that's how I could relate as a 14-year-old to other 14-year-olds.
Because they're going down the same path with you. They get it.
Yeah, they're with me. Right. We're in it together. And we weren't the only 14-year-olds. You know, there were other 14-year-olds in other states, in other places, and we were able to network. I mean, you know, it's a secret language. It's a look. You know, any acid head knows another acid head. It's just...
You just know.
You just know.
And so what's that journey to selling it? How do those combine? What do they intertwine in?
Well, when you start having like a real love for hallucinogenics of any kind, you know, you go from like buying it for yourself to like, you know, you've got other people to buy it for, and then the next thing you know, you're just kind of like increasing that because this friend knows another friend and that friend knows another friend and blah blah, and then people want to stockpile because you don't know if this family's going to make this batch or that family's going to do this other batch, and you don't know what's going on. So I mean, as you get to know the product, you kind of fall into dealing it. You know, but also it helps.
Just by having access to it,
yeah,
and sharing it with other people, they gonna want to know where you got it from.
Right.
So you just make a little money as the middleman.
Right.
Like that type of situation.
That type of situation. But then, you know, the more you're selling, the less of, you know, the middle you become. It's kind of like a rank. You know, you start climbing that ladder a little bit, and you know, it's it just takes off from there.
And okay, so do you want to go into the acid dip and all of that, or do you want to keep that off camera?
No, we can talk about that.
Okay, so leading up to, first off, let's explain to the audience what was it, the thumbprint?
Yeah, the thumbprint happened first.
So what is a thumbprint for the people that don't know?
A thumbprint is when your thumb is put in liquid LSD for absorption.
The purest form, right? The purest form of LSD.
It's the purest form. It's like the crystallized, and it's the thumbprint. And that just, even though it's in your thumb, it just hits you because it's so much at one time. That is an initiation into like a higher level, a hierarchy of that world. And I was thumbprinted when I was 14. Ask your next question.
Okay, so let's stop at the thumbprint first. What's the experience? What's the experience after they thumbprint you, and you? I believe you said that they had you confined the first
time, right?
Yes,
the first time they had me confined, they kept me in this room, and what it was like a rebirth. Hold on, I have to kind of go back there. I was instantly high. There wasn't any like gradual incline. It was like an immediate peak. And I stayed in that peak for weeks in this room. And it felt like I was in the womb. I could feel myself being conceived. That moment of actual bursting into existence. And then I could experience the whole fetal process. And I became, a baby in the womb. And then I pushed out and it was like a whole new world. I was exposed to things that I hadn't been exposed to before. I felt like I saw the whole planetary system. But I just saw it. I wasn't just seeing it, it was being in it. And it was like this beautiful experience, but it was also all about relearning, literally relearning, learning how to drink, learning how to eat, learning how to crawl, learning how to walk. It was this.
And you're experiencing this simultaneously while you're still in your 14-year-old reality, correct?
Yes. Okay, and then it's because you're experiencing the galaxy and the birth, and you're experiencing everything all at the same time. Your mind goes to this place that's dimensional. And I know that sounds crazy. I know, I really do. But this was my experience, It was dimensional. But while all of that is going on, there are sounds also. So you have the visuals, you have the auditory, you smell things, you can taste things, you're feeling things, and it's all happening at once. you have a sensory overload.
Alright, so, and like you said, the first time was initiation purposes, right?
Yes.
So, hold on just 1 second. Alright, so yeah, the first time, initiation purposes, what escalates it? What takes it to what you're about to tell us next? What makes them take it to that next level?
Why were they initiating me?
No, so the first one, the fingerprint.
Oh.
What happened to make them take you to that next level? What you're about to tell us next, or what they done to you?
Oh, okay. So there was a person who said that I had done something or said something that I wasn't supposed to do or say, and I didn't even see this person when they said I did the things that I wasn't supposed to do, that I didn't do. So my trustability became a question. And I was told to come to the toy store in San Francisco off of Haight Street. And I went to the toy store and I went into the basement. And when I got to the basement, there were 3 individuals from the wrecking crew who dipped my head in LSD.
And then what's that immediate high? What does that high feel like?
That is like a breaking point. Okay, it's you in the first thought you have in that moment is you can either be sane or insane from here on out, and you have to keep your mind intact if you want to make it. Otherwise, you're just going to be roaming San Francisco, talking to yourself and on your knees and freaking out.
So, do you believe that some of the homeless community in California might have had that happen to them?
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. That has happened to them.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I never thought about it from that perspective, because you always wonder, like, how do people? You don't know people's story, and you don't know how they ended up under this bridge or living inside of this tent or whatever. You never know. And to think that it could be something that somebody got their head dipped in LSD and never came back, like, that's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I definitely came back. And not only did I come back, but when they realized that I did not do what I had been accused of doing, I was given multiple territories. So, it's alright.
So, does at this point, at the point that you have your head dipped, do you consider yourself an addict at that point?
No.
So, at any point in your life, do you ever consider yourself an addict or addicted to something, a substance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There have been a few times that I have thought, oh, I think I'm addicted. And that was with cocaine, snorting cocaine. It was with meth in the 90s. I want to emphasize in the 90s. Very different meth back then. and heroin. Um, but the thing is that when I said enough's enough and I quit, I went cold turkey. And it wasn't that bad. You know, it was just irritating.
So let me ask you this: for the person that's watching this right now that has never struggled with addiction or never struggled with a substance that's kind of just controlling their life, what is that? What does that look like? What is addiction?
Addiction is self-medicating. Okay, addiction is self-medicating. Addiction is being in so much pain that there is no point in giving a fuck, okay, as long as you're not hurt. That's what addiction is. There comes a point, though, when an addict will recognize that they are hurting more than ever before. They're hurting themselves. And they will get up. And if they don't get up, they'll die. But most of the time, they will get up because you were strong enough to get through your bullshit, your traumas, the thing that you are self-medicating on. You can get up.
And is it a lot of fear connected to addiction?
I don't think it's fear so much. I think it's self-destruction. I think it's self-loathing. I don't think that addicts are afraid. Okay? If addicts were afraid, they wouldn't put themselves in the situations that they put themselves in. You know, nobody wants to be on a corner panhandling. I mean, seriously, nobody fucking wants that. Nobody wants to sell their ass. Nobody wants to sell their affections. Nobody wants to be forced into relationships for financial reasons because they're addicted. Nobody wants to be enslaved. Nobody wants to work shit jobs because they're addicted. You know, nobody grew up, nobody was a kid saying, oh my God, when I grow up I really want to be a junkie, you know. So, no, they're not afraid. They're not afraid of anything, you know. Not at all.
Okay, so where that kind of transitions me into my next question is, it's a two-part question. What is your biggest fear right now, currently? And what is your biggest fear so far that you have conquered? Two questions. What's your biggest fear right now at this very moment? And then what's the biggest fear that you've conquered in your lifetime?
My biggest fear right now is dying as a fuck doll.
What does that mean?
Just like not ever having a good solid relationship again. You know, just dying as a memory in some guy's mind. You know, I want a real relationship. You know, I'm tired of the bullshit.
And what's the biggest fear that you feel like you've conquered so far in your life?
The fear of saying no.
Okay. So you feel like you have the ability now to say no?
Yes.
Where before you struggled with it?
I struggled with the word no, but now I can say no.
Okay, so let's get on a more metaphysical note, we've dove into the trauma. We have a pretty core idea of some of the things that you've been through. So let's get an idea of your thoughts on reality. What is reality to you? If you was to if somebody on the street walked up to you and say, "Hey, what the hell is reality?" What would you tell them?
Oh my God, right now I don't know. I don't know. There's so many realities. I think that reality is up for interpretation because, your reality might not be the same as my reality. I have a friend that I just experienced two separate realities with just recently. So, his reality was like this, and my reality was over here, and there was a big clash when we tried to talk about each other's realities. So, I would say that reality is really up for interpretation because everybody has their own reality. I don't know, we just make up our own stories in our own lives, and we just happen to share space with other people from time to time. It's not like you really have somebody you start and finish with, So,
all right, so
multiple realities.
So it's a theory. I can't, for the people watching, you can put it in the comments. I can't necessarily think of the name of the theory right now. But the concept of the theory is that everybody is here by themselves. Every person on this planet is here by themselves and they're creating it. So basically, what's behind me right now doesn't exist until I turn around and make it a reality. So everything is a reflection of my thoughts and my visions of what I think this reality should be. What's your take on that theory that we're all here by ourselves?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking. What's your take on the theory that we're all here by ourselves and we're all reflecting just ourselves?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that we're all here by ourselves reflecting ourselves. I think that we really are a humanity, and that we all exist. I think it would be lonely what a lonely world it would be to be just one reality reflecting others, It just sounds lonely.
So when you went on your trips and you had your other dimensional experiences, what was the main difference that you can say between those dimensions and the one that we're currently occupying right now?
It was like seeing the same timeline, just different different paths of it. How do I explain? It was like being able to see the forks in the road, but what every road had to offer. Some of the worlds allowed you to see the true essence of people, what somebody really looked like, if they were lizardy or alieny or just animalistic. You could just see into people's spirits in such a way that you can't do on this realm, this dimension. sometimes things were flat. Sometimes they were over rounded. Like, it was just different. But normally when I talk about that, it's after I've had a spinal pop and I can relive it a little bit.
What's a spinal pop?
Well, I have a lot of LSD in my spinal fluid. So when my back pops, I can trip. And that's from the head dipping, you know.
So all these years later, traces of LSD still remain inside of you.
Yes.
And it'll probably never go away. Right?
No, because that fluid is just recycled and recycled and recycled in your system.
Wow. So what's your take on, with having all of these trippy experiences, what's your take on...
Oh, what I didn't tell you is that people like to trip with me because I open doors. Okay? I can open doors. I'll take them to places that they haven't been, you know, and it's really Alice in Wonderland for them. And for me, it's like nothing, you know. It might be like in between two buses and a car, and they're like, oh my God, it's a door.
Almost like a spirit guide, but while you're here.
Yes, a sage.
Wow. With these type of experiences, what is your perspective of the afterlife? What's after this, or what's before this, depending on how you look at it?
The spirit world is a continuum. We're like always in the spirit world. We pick who we want to be raised by. You know, I'm not sure why we do that, but we pick our people. I've been in situations where sometimes I'll really open up and I'll express like universal secrets that I don't know where they come from.
Like channeling?
Yeah.
Like something speaking through you?
Yes. Channeling is definitely the term. I've seen dark things and I've seen beautiful things. I was in a situation once where I had a choice of like signing a contract and moving higher up into my entrepreneurship. And in that moment was like the contract just appeared. It just appeared from nowhere, you know. I didn't see it come out of a briefcase. I didn't see it, you know, being like, oh, here's this contract. It just kind of like, boom, was there. And I looked across at the person who was offering me this contract, and I just saw demonic. And I was like, I can't do this. And in that moment, it was like there were two halves of me, and there was this dark side and this side of light. And I could hear voices, and it was really overwhelming. And I was being given a choice. And I turned my head towards the light. And in that moment, like, the contract disappeared. That person got up and left my apartment. But that was the moment that the whole entrepreneurship of what I was doing, it all like crumbled. It just fell apart. And I think that was a sign. Like, instead of spending my life in prison for the things that I was doing, I left the city I was at, relocated, and got a job at a bank and became a bank teller and raised my kid and did not go to federal prison. So I think that was a divine intervention. And I think that LSD led me to the ability to have divine interventions. So that's how I put that together.
And the LSD, you think the LSD gives you
I think the
more emphasis on your intuition?
I think that
stronger?
I think that the LSD, okay, the thumbprint and the dip was what opened up a level of consciousness that is sometimes like so intense. I can astroplane, I can channel, I can do energy work with people. I have these abilities that I don't know if I possessed before LSD, you know. But then again, I was 14, how would I know if I had those abilities at that time, you know? I just know I have these abilities now.
Well, have you ever thought about diving into these abilities full throttle?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I have. I've done a lot of channeling for people. Most of the time it's unintentional. It's actually like out of my control. Like I have no control over it. I can't say when it'll happen or if it'll happen. Like I can't promise it. It's not something I can turn on. But it's usually when people really need to hear something that's going to help them lift up. So at least it's positive. Sometimes it can come across as really heavy and mushy, but I think that's my vocal tone. But yeah, that can be really intense. You know, sometimes I'll have dreams, you know, and I'll write these dreams down, and, you know, a year, 10 or 20 years later, they come true, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. I just assume that the LSD opened up those channels.
Alright, so we almost an hour in, so we gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So before we end, I want you to leave the people with a message, more specifically the people that have struggled with addiction, the people that have struggled with like these interdimensional battles that maybe they don't have a full grip or full grasp on what they're even experiencing. Well, the people that are like you that aren't as in tune as you are or understanding as you are, what do you say to those people, the people that are struggling right now in this multi-dimensional world with addiction and self-love and all of these things? What would you say to them? Or better yet, let's start right there. What would you tell your 14-year-old self before she got the LSD put in her thumb?
Look, little person, you have a whole life ahead of you. Stop what you're doing. Okay? You're not worthless. You're not stupid. You're not a fuck. Okay? You're not in the way. You're not unwanted. You're not in this world alone. There are people who care about you. There are people who care about you now. There are going to be people who care about you later. You're not alone. You're not weak. Stand the fuck up. Okay? If you don't feel like anybody's going to do it for you, then you need to do it for yourself. You might fall. You might relapse. Okay? So what? It happens. Don't let it fucking drag you down. Get the fuck up. That's the best thing you can do. Get the fuck up. Otherwise, you're gonna die. Because the government is poisoning you. Everything you take is fucking fentanyl. Okay? It's going to affect everything. So stop. Get the fuck up.
That was powerful. I appreciate you being so open and honest with me today. Great interview.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, definitely.
I hope I can do it again.
Absolutely. We'll definitely bring you back.
You'll have to catch me in different moods.
Yeah, get different versions of you for sure.
Right.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.